Hi, my name is Gabriel, and today I'll be covering natural selection for SLAM tutoring. So, first off, let's take a look at a brief overview of Charles Darwin and what really led to him making these discoveries. So, first off, this is Charles Darwin right here, and he was inspired after reading an essay on the principle of population by Thomas Robert Malthus. And in here, Malthus essentially states that the individuals in a population will always grow faster than the resources that are available to them. For example, if you have a pond, a small pond, and there's a couple fish in there, everything is fine. Each fish has enough food for itself. But if you double the amount of fish, suddenly there's much less resources for all of them. And through just these fish reproducing, slowly there's more and more fish, and eventually there's not enough resources for all of the fish together. So then this causes competition, which is one of the key principles. And then yeah, this really led to him making the discovery of, or the his theory of the survival of the fittest. And he observed this through the finches. You hear about Darwin's finches in the Galapagos. So the finches really are the key, played a key role in his discovery. And the next key point is descent with modification. This is that this states that essentially um, when two parents have produced their offspring, the offspring will share roles of the parents. However, there will still be differentiation, as these traits are not always the same. This can be through mutations or just because it's a mix of two parents. So, right, inconsistent reproduction and inheritance. This is essentially descent with modification. So, first off, you have the hereditary traits. These are like traits that you inherit from your parents, right? If you can see here, there's a picture of a father as a child, and then there's that father's son right there, and you can see that the father and the son look very, very similar, right? You can, I mean, you can see it in the face and the cheeks, the teeth, the nose, right? Everything about it is very similar. This is because the traits were passed on. Um, However, sometimes two parents will have kids, and there will be very few similarities. This is because the child takes traits from both of the parents. But there's also just variation, and there's also recessive traits, if you remember. Throw back to some genetics. So through mutations and variations, there is over time, after many many generations, the the offspring, the most recent generation, may look nothing like their ancestors just because of combinations in the gene pool. So this really allows a species to evolve over time. Just the fact that it can take traits from different members of its population and just become something else. So that is a key principle of evolution. Now, the next idea is fitness and competition. Now, like I said, when there's not enough resources in a population, uh, the individuals will have to compete for it. And this is the survival of the fittest. This means that the individuals that are the most fit, or that have the best traits, are more likely to survive, right? So if we're looking at a population of finches, Darwin, when he first came to the Galapagos, he noted down all the species of finches, and then the next time he came by, there were new species. And this is interesting. And now, what he realized happened was because there were so many finches around there, and there wasn't enough food. Some of the finches had to look for ways to get other food. For example, say you take a look at this finch up here. Say all of the finches look like this one, and they were all going for the same um, types of food, perhaps berries or something that they would dig around in the dirt with. This beak would probably be good for digging around the dirt or eating larger food sources. But if if all of the finches were going after the same thing, then there would also be other food sources, say maybe insects that would hide inside trees or burrow in the ground that would be impossible to reach with such a big beak. So finches that had smaller beaks would be able to get these other food sources. And essentially, it would just come down to whoever was able to get food. So the finches that were able to get food were the ones that could fly faster than others, maybe, or were the ones that had special beaks so that they could actually reach food. And the finches that could not compete, or they weren't getting enough food, would die out. And basically, the idea is survival of the fittest. If your traits are more fit for your environment, you're able to survive longer than those that will struggle to gain resources. And that's essentially the physical capability. Next, there's also reproduction, which is just who manages to mate first, because even if everyone is surviving, if it will come down to some animals fight over mates or over territory, if you're able to fight better, then you will also um, mate more and you will make more offspring, and then your traits will be passed on through the offspring. So really it just comes down to whoever is able to survive better. And this is what Darwin observed through the finches, through their evolution, and this is basically the main idea of survival of the fittest. Next, you also have one last key point is genetic drift and variation. And basically, what this is this goes back to what we were talking about previously, which is the whole hereditary traits. Um, when the other species with those poor traits don't manage to reproduce, they're no longer in the gene pool. The genetic drift looks, if you're looking at the genetic drift of a specific trait, for example, if you're looking at, say there's two feather types, feather A and feather B for the finches. Say feather A is very slow in the air and is not quite as fast as feather B. The finches with feather B might be able to run away from predators better. So if all the finches with feather A get caught, then all the finches with feather B are still alive and they reproduce. So the genetic drift of feather A would be very interesting, because you would go from having a lot of feather type A to almost none at all, because all the finches with feather A managed to die and they were no longer able to produce more offspring with feather type A. So genetic drift and variation looks at the availability of specific traits as they change over time and through generations. And that is all for Charles Darwin and his finches. Thank you for watching.